available forever for diabetics, for type 1 diabetics. That's what they did to monitor their blood sugar. But the first time it became available publicly was with that Freestyle Libre. You take a sip of water. And the issue was you could only get it by prescription. So I managed to figure out how to get it. Don't ask, I won't tell. But I managed to figure out how to get myself one of these Freestyle Libres and started testing myself. And it was a game changer because I could see in real time how foods were affecting me without having to remember to prick my finger all the time. So those have evolved. That was the very first one. And then there was a 14-day one. And then there was the Freestyle Libre 2 and 3. And now the 3, which is a teeny tiny little disc that you put on your arm or usually your arm, and it will continuously monitor your glucose. This invention has become a game changer for me and for my clients. And when I first started wearing it, I would be going to health practitioner conferences and people going, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were diabetic." And I'd be like, "I'm not diabetic. I don't want to become diabetic." And I teach this in my programs. And they're like, "What? You get people to do this?" Yeah, if they don't want to prick their fingers, we try to get them access to the CGMs. I believe that if every person was able to get their hands on one of these CGMs and use it for a month and really track their diet, how the blood sugar effect is affected by lack of sleep or abundant sleep, how the blood sugar is affected by stress, how it's affected by exercise. Is it going up during exercise and then coming back down? Is it going down during exercise? What's going on? How is the metabolic health responding to the activities of daily living? The diet, the exercise, sleep, stress, and attitude, right? How are we working? So this was all of what I started to do about, I'm guessing it was 5 years ago. I'd have to go back in my records and see. Now, fast forward to today, this is 2023. CGMs are all over the place. There are companies that have come out that will facilitate people who don't have a prescription from their doctor to get them by having their doctors prescribe them. And so many people have them. And now when I go to health practitioner conferences, almost everybody is wearing a CGM, right? And they're monitoring and they're starting to teach it to their patients. So I was a pioneer, yay. It's very fun. But I really believe that the kinds of changes that I've seen when people can real time see what's happening. And in the past, when I used to teach people how to get their blood sugars under control, I'd just start with teaching them how to get their blood sugars under control, what things to avoid, etc. But some people would then start testing once their meters came in, and they would say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. No problem with my blood sugar. I don't really need this program. I don't need to get it under control." But the reality was they'd already made the changes and they got their blood sugar under control, and then they were testing. So now when people come into my programs, I say, do not change your diet. Eat the way you are eating now and have been eating for at least the last few months. And let's just see what that's doing to you, right? And then sometimes they want to test certain things. I wonder what happens if I eat a mango. I wonder what happens if I eat M&Ms. I wonder what happens if. And they do. And oftentimes it's an eye opener because that little bit of sugar and cream that they were putting in their coffee, right? So we teach people how to do this, and it's made a world of difference. I've seen people actually, I can't really say they really reversed their diabetes, but they appeared not to be diabetic anymore after doing this for 3 days, just by watching and going, whoops, taking that out, because nobody ever told them before what to look for. In conventional medicine, doctors are taught, and then they teach their diabetic patients to test their blood sugar before their meal and then test it again at 2 hours. And as long as it's below 140, you're well controlled. That's the biggest myth and the biggest lie I have ever heard. There's no evidence that supports that. If your blood sugar is at 140 2 hours after eating a meal, you have out of control blood sugar. What it should be is back down to what it was or close to what it was before you started the meal, because that's how long it should be able to come back down. But the other thing we look at, and you can see so easily on a CGM, is what's the peak? How high does it go before it comes back down? And all the research I've been doing over the last, 15, 20 years says that 110 is about where you want to keep it. Occasionally it might go up to 115 or 120, but honestly, it should be 110 or below. Give or take, because sometimes the meters aren't 100% accurate. But if it's generally speaking in that range, you're okay. And this was figured out by studying indigenous populations who don't have access to the plethora of fast food and processed food, ultra processed foods that we currently have in our society. So that's where it is. So what is so game changing? Why do I say having a CGM is like magic? If you're a health practitioner, you're going to appreciate this. And if you are listening for your own health, you're going to appreciate this too. When we hear something and it's textbook, when we read about something or somebody tells us we should do something, if we don't really understand the mechanism, it's harder to follow through. But when we understand the mechanism, and then when we got confirmation, either via a CGM, via a lab test, even via a genetic test, that there's something there we have to pay attention to, guess what? We're going to make the changes that we were planning on making, or that we were advised to make, because it's much more incentive. So I find that CGMs and lab testing and genetic testing, or all of the above, help people to make decisions about their health that they kind of knew that they should have been making, but they weren't completely convinced until they see it. So if you've never used a CGM, I highly recommend check in with your doctor and say, hey, can you recommend this CGM, continuous glucose monitor? And a lot of them will say, well, why? You're not diabetic. And when you say, because I don't want to become diabetic, because I have a family history of diabetes, because I feel kind of weird after eating certain foods, and I'm concerned that my blood sugar is on a roller coaster, because I have cravings, whatever works for you. I have cravings after certain meals, and I feel like I just need to get my blood sugar under control. And I've been reading about it and how metabolic imbalance, blood sugar imbalance included, creates a situation where we're fodder for other diseases. So it's the underlying cause of cardiovascular disease, cancer, kidney disease, blindness, amputation, things like that, right? Peripheral neuropathy is what causes the amputation piece. These are the things you want to avoid. And unfortunately, oftentimes when you use the conventional approach to testing, which means that once your fasting glucose is above 120, 125, then you're considered diabetic, and then you get to do something about it. But in reality, if you are taught to measure your postprandial glucose, the glucose curve, and the dynamics of that after you eat a meal, that's where you're going to catch things early. And when you look at things like insulin, fasting insulin, most doctors won't test that unless you're already diabetic. All of these things are going to contribute to you getting your blood sugar under control, you getting your metabolic health under control, and it could even save your life. So highly recommend, look at getting a CGM, ask your doctor to prescribe, and here's the good news. There are several companies out there who will get you a CGM even if your doctor doesn't prescribe it. It's a little more expensive to do it that way, but so well worth it. I have an arrangement with a company called Thea Health. And if you go to drreadamarie.com/CGM, you can find out more. But there are others as well. That's the one that I chose to work with because I like the pricing and I like the flexibility and I like the education that they provide and the software that they provide, the app that they provide. So I highly recommend you get yourself a CGM, you start to do the testing. And if you like this video, go ahead and look at the suggested videos. We have a lot of videos on metabolic health. Take charge of your health. Empower yourself to be able to understand how your body's working, understand your glucose, and do something to get it under control. So thank you for sharing. If you'd like to go into more depth on this and other things that we have available, we have an upcoming event at the end of July called Your Genes, Your Diet, and Your Metabolism. And we're going to talk a lot about metabolic health and how you can take charge of it and get yourself healthy. So watch the videos and join us at foodandgenes.com is the URL. We'll put it in the chat. We'll put it in the comments section. And until next time, be unstoppable.